Hi, I'm Ruben Saltzman with Structure Tech Home Inspections, and today I'm going to talk to you about improper shingle nailing. So I'm located here in Minnesota, and most of the roofs that we inspect have asphalt shingles. And the nailing instructions, the fastening requirements from just about all manufacturers are pretty much the same. There's very little difference from manufacturer to manufacturer. The requirements are that you have a nailing strip in every shingle. It's a place where nails are supposed to be located. You're supposed to use a certain type of nail. It's supposed to be driven in at a certain depth, and it needs to be located in a certain place on the shingle. It's all pretty well laid out. It's pretty much the same. If you're a roofer, you better know how to do this in your sleep, but still, we find this done wrong on a lot of home inspections. And to find improper nailing, what we like to do is we try to lift up shingles. Now, we will use a putty knife to do this. We don't go around breaking seals on shingles. We're not aggressive about this. We don't do damage to shingles to lift them up. But if we can simply slide our putty knife into shingles and they lift up easily enough, either it indicates that there was never a good seal on the shingles to start with, or more commonly, it's a fairly new installation and the sun hasn't had time to seal those shingles together yet. So we will check this regularly. This is stuff that cannot be done if we are only inspecting a roof from the ground. Now, those situations happen pretty few and far between. We walk every roof that we can possibly walk. And even if we can't walk a roof because it's too steep, we will take a 28-foot extension ladder and we'll lean it up against the side of the roof just so we can put our hands on there. We can lift shingles, we can touch it, we can get it up close and personal. The only time we don't do one of those two things is when you've got a roof that's too high to reach with a 28-foot extension ladder. In those cases, we will come out and we will do the drone inspection of the roof. Those cases are, yeah, like I said, pretty few and far between. It's not as good as actually accessing the roof and touching it, but it's the closest thing we can do because we don't have ladders that are taller than 28 feet. Okay, total digression, but I thought it is important to talk about different inspection methods and how your inspector could be identifying these different defects. So, what goes wrong with the shingle nailing? Number one is improperly located fasteners. That's probably the most common defect that we find. When a shingle is properly nailed, you're going to have a nailing strip right in the middle of the shingle. It's about 1.5 inches wide, and nails are not supposed to be located any lower or any higher. If the nails are located too low, it means that you're going to have exposed nails. You can actually see those nails. They're not going to be covered by the next shingle coming down. The nail is going to be located down here where you can see it. Now, this can go on for a really long period of time with no adverse effects, but eventually any of those exposed nails can lead to a roof leak. I blogged about this probably almost a decade ago, and what reminded me to just kind of come back and revisit this was one of the inspectors on my team had visited a family member's house to troubleshoot a roof leak that a family member was having, and he traced this roof leak down to one exposed nail that had been put there about 14 years ago. So for 14 years, there was no problems with the roof. You got an exposed nail, no big deal. You know, you talk to some people involved in a real estate transaction and they'll say, well, it's just a cosmetic defect. Who cares? No, this is not cosmetic. It does matter. It might not leak immediately, but it can leak eventually. So nails too low are very easy to spot. You can just about see these from the ground. You can definitely see these if you're having a drone inspection done. So it's not that big of a deal to fix that. What's more insidious, what's more difficult to locate is nails located too high on the shingle. And the way it works is if you have a shingle here and then you put another shingle down on top of it, if we're nailing in the right spot on the shingle that's going down on top, that nail is actually going to catch the top edge of the shingle below it. So instead of every shingle getting 4 nails in it, one at the edge, 2 in the middle, or If it's a really high slope or a really high wind area, perhaps 2 nails in the middle for a total of 6 nails. Again, I digress, but instead of having that traditional number of nails going through the middle of the shingle, you also have the shingle above catching the top edge, and all of those nails are going to go through the shingle. So instead of having 4 nails in a shingle, you actually have 8 holding every shingle in place. And that's why it's important not to have those nails located too high on the shingle. That's why that exact location really does matter. It's because we're catching the shingle below. So if you don't have that, your shingles are going to be much more prone to blowing off in the wind. And we've seen this happen in big sheets. We've seen huge sheets of shingles actually just sliding down because the nails don't have the right holding power. This is a pervasive defect, and there's basically 2 ways to fix this. And I'll come back to those 2 ways in a second. Hold on. But another defect we find is nails driven too far in or not far enough. Now, if a nail is not driven in far enough, that's called underdriven, it's pretty obvious. You can spot this from the ground. If you're looking at the roof from the right angle, if you kind of line up your eyes with the sight line of that roof, you can spot underdriven nails from the ground. Piece of cake, because those shingles aren't going to be laying flat. They're going to be bumped up, or you're going to see little bumps in the shingles. So that's easy to spot. It's not a big defect. Basically, if the underdriven nail hasn't damaged the mat of the shingle, you could simply have somebody get up on the roof and pound the nails back down, and we're good. But for overdriven nails, that's another tough to find defect. You actually need to have somebody on the roof lifting up shingles. You need to look at a few locations to try to come up with a representative sample for the rest of the roof. And when they're overdriven, it means that those nails have punched right through the mat of the shingle, and they're going to have very little, if any, holding power. And this will happen if the pressure is dialed up too high on the nailing guns. If the roofer is using pneumatic nailers and they're using too much pressure, it can punch right through the mat of the shingles. It's more likely to happen on really hot days where the shingles are a lot softer. And again, we'll see shingles just coming off in sheets with this type of installation. So I said there's 2 potential ways to deal with these insidious nailing defects. What do? I'd say, number 1, you have the roof torn off and redone, assuming it's a new installation. Now, if I'm finding this kind of stuff on a 5-year-old roof, well, it's 5 years old, nothing has happened yet. I will let my clients know that it's not properly nailed, but there's really nothing you're going to do about it today. But when we find this stuff on a roof that has just been replaced, or it's a new construction home where it was just installed, that's something where the installer should have a little bit more responsibility to do the installation correctly. So our advice to our clients would be either have the whole roof covering torn off and redone, or simply get a letter from the manufacturer stating that they will still honor their warranty even with this improper installation. You see what I'm doing? I'm trying to not be the bad guy here. I'm saying you don't necessarily have to tear it off. As long as the manufacturer is cool with this, then I'm cool with it too. That's really all that matters. Now, I've never seen that letter generated. I've seen a number of roofs torn off that were brand new, where they had to redo the whole thing because the manufacturer would not honor their warranty with that improper installation. I have seen that a number of times. Okay, that sums it up. Those are the most common things we find on roof installations. And again, it's all stuff that we can only find by walking or getting up close to a roof and actually touching it and lifting up shingles. If we're doing this stuff from the ground, we can't always find this stuff. Okay, thanks for watching. Take care.